Hi, I'm Kenna Nickel, and this is my testimony. I've always grown up in church. My family always went to church, like, my whole life. Like, everybody went to church. And that was just kind of like a part of my identity. Like, oh, Kenna's a church girl. Kenna just does all the things. Yeah, so pretty much growing up, I had a normal childhood, which you would consider normal. Yeah, my family always went, my dad always came, we always went to our grandparents' house afterwards. It's a pretty basic, generic family. And then, like, school was pretty normal, had good grades, knew everybody, had friends with everybody, and then right around my freshman year, everything kind of just took a turn for the worst in all aspects of my life. So the summer before my freshman year, I caught my dad doing something he shouldn't have been doing while I was sleeping. And from that, kind of just did a whole snowball effect. So we found out that he has been addicted to meth for years. With that happening, my mental health really started to decline. And growing up in church, I always knew that God was the place to go and run to. I had that really strong foundation, and so I went to church. I still did all my normal things. But my dad was still coming with us. So he was still the constant trigger, just kind of had always affected me in some way, shape, or form. The night after everything happened, I went to my mom and I literally just sobbed. I had never sobbed before, and that was just the time that I just broke down. I'm all of the walls that I had built and all of my comfort level, I wasn't safe in my own room anymore, and that was my safe zone. I wasn't able to trust the one guy in my life that I was supposed to trust. Everything just kind of shattered underneath me. And so that night, my dad was actually in his tool shed, and mom and we went out to the shed, and I told my dad that I forgave him. I didn't actually forgive him. I had not forgiven him in my heart. I was just trying to make it all okay at that point. So for about 2 months, I slept with my mom in her room, and my dad was still in the house. So I started to really be depressed and kind of went into myself. The rest of that summer was really just kind of a blur. A lot of things were kind of suppressed for different reasons or others, but that summer really kind of just went in a blur. And then school was here. School came, and I had to be the positive, happy Kenna that everybody knew. So I was always bubbly, I was always optimistic about things, I was always just happy to be there, happy to help other people, and I really didn't have problems of my own. So I felt I still had to maintain that. And while still going to church, still being a part of the Christian lifestyle, I wasn't really acting in it, and it just became a really hard juggling act. I always seemed to have a mask on, being happy and being Kenna, and then whenever I would go home, I would have to isolate myself in order to feel any sort of security. So freshman year got really bad. My dad was in and out of the house still, and so I really just locked myself in my room whenever I went home. I would really just isolate myself, and it turned into a point where the only way that I could feel anything was looking at things and doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. That was because I had numbed myself to every other emotion at this point. I couldn't be happy, I couldn't be scared, I couldn't be frightened, I couldn't be angry, because you can't be angry at someone who is you're supposed to be forgiven. You know what I'm saying? I thought that I had to be this wall of strength and security for my family, and be the protector of everybody. So I was numb to everything. All I wanted to do was feel something, and so I turned to other things in order to get that feeling. And it was always just in the back of my head, I knew that what I was doing was wrong, but I didn't feel like I had any other alternative. It was truly just a bottom of the barrel moment for me. I was depressed, and I was anxious, and I was just so angry at everybody and everything, but I couldn't express it. So at this point, I was just building all this pressure, and something was about to break it, And so one night, it was the middle of the night, and I was just laying there, and I fell asleep, only to wake up, and I was across the room, and I could see myself laying on the bed. And I had a fire Bible beside my bed on the bedside table, and it was just glowing. And I could see myself in this Bible that just shined a light into this really dark room and over me. And at that moment, I got this little voice in the back of my head, and I knew that everything was going to be okay. Like, I didn't know when it was going to get better, and it didn't change much of my everyday life. It just gave me the hope. And for the first time, looking back on it, like, I know what everyone is talking about whenever they say that, like, God is in that small voice. God is in the quiet places, the dark places. Like, God really was there in everything. He saw everything that I was going through, everything that I was feeling, and he was helping me through that. And so after that night, I really tried more to become more like Christ, because I knew I had it in me, and I knew that sooner or later, like, God has a higher purpose for me. God has given me like a calling or like a dream to like teach to kids. Like, I got that dream when I was 9 years old, like that mission in life. Like, I'm going to be a missionary. I'm going to teach kids. I'm going to do all this stuff. He gave me that at such a young age, I believe, to equip me for that time in my life when I felt like I couldn't get out of anything. So, like, God has just been so faithful to me ever since then. Like, he's opened up doors. He has healed me through multiple years of just working on myself. Like, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I feel like I have to run to other things to get the satisfaction that I know that God can only give me? So my trust in men was completely shattered at this point. That was probably one of the more like apparent things that people could see, was that I wasn't trusting any sort of male figure in my life. And this kind of went on. So we had moved from the church that I grew up in into a different church, and we went to that church for a while. That was more healing on my part, but it wasn't until I actually like came here. I don't mean to like brag on all the guys here, but they're pretty amazing if you didn't know. But they really did, like, they made me confident in who I am, and they showed me this like unconditional love that God has, and really just loved on me, like through it all. And so like Josh was one of the first people that I met, and he like reached out to us, and I was like, I'm not messing with this person. Like, I'm not gonna mess with him. I don't want to mess with David. I don't want to do all this. David was probably the biggest influence and the biggest healing factor when it came to trusting guys again. God really was just like, you can't push this person away. Like, all he's gonna ever do is love on you. The relationship that I have with all of these guys, they really did build up that Christ-like love, because I saw how they treated their wives and how they treated their daughters, and how they treated their kids in general and other people of the church. And that made me, I don't know, it refocused myself. Like, not all men are bad, and I just felt truly like loved by them, and I really hadn't experienced that before. You know, even with like my dad beforehand, like, I never was really close with him, so like I didn't ever feel like, yes, you are my daughter, I love you. You know, like, he said it, and like it was more, you know, but it wasn't until like I really came here and started healing from that hurt, like that huge hurt, that I truly felt loved by men. David was just so considerate and kind, and like his testimony really like brought into perspective that like not all men are self-serving, and not all men, like, all they do is just want to make themselves better. Like, he's sacrificed so much for the place that he is and where God has put him for God. And then like Andrew, he like just constantly would just come up to me and just be like, hey, how are you doing? Like, and he meant it. He meant his questions. And Jacob's Jacob, like, he's just there to like make you smile, and like not in a creepy way. Like, he's just a great guy. Like, and then there's Josh. He reached out to our family, and like he wouldn't let us say no. Like, because we were all hurt at that point, and like he was just such a good influence on like me and Connor, and like during COVID, we got so close to him. He showed me what it means to be like a true follower of God and still love on people without being self-seeking. So within that healing and that individual relationships, it truly like mirrored how God sees me. Like, with everything that they said, that they're like, man, you're so talented, you're so gifted, you're so strong. How much more does God see me like that? Like, it really put into perspective that, like, everything that I hated about myself at that moment of my life, in that time of my life, all of those things God loves about me. And, like, he made me that way specifically. And hearing positive feedback from the men of the church really, like, how much more does God love me through that? You know, it was overwhelming to see that and feel that after meeting everybody here. It's just overwhelming. It's just overwhelming love from all sides. Like, you feel the love of the Father, and you just feel loved and at peace with everything. Like, the struggles were for a reason. Where I was in that dark place was for a reason. The like mission that I got at 9 years old was for a reason, and this is the reason. Like, I am loved. I am perfectly and wonderfully made, and everybody else sees what God has done in my life. So who am I to try to downplay who God has made me to be? I see the love of God on me and kind of finding my worth again after it being totally and completely destroyed. Slowly coming to the terms that, like, God made me exactly how he wants me to be. Tall, loud, just excited for stupid things. Like, all of it combined is for a reason. And it's just overwhelming to, like, totally just feel that in me after years of not feeling it.